Hello, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and welcome back. Well, welcome to another episode of What We Have Learned. I tried to do this video yesterday. I tried to record this video yesterday to put it out on Monday, and the microphone was far away from the actual setup in itself. So hopefully the audio is okay and it's as normal as it's always been. But make sure to like the video as you're coming in. Well, I say as you're coming in. I forget that this is not a stream. As you're watching this video, and share it to your social medias. If you want to follow me on social media, GVO Mike's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And we're trying to hit 1K before, well, ideally before the end of the year, but as soon as possible. As soon as possible. And yeah, we're very close to 600 as well. So thank you very much for the support. But yeah, obviously, we did this video for the first international break where we broke down like the positives and negatives and the tactical setup and stuff like that when it comes to Lopetegui and what he needs to improve and what he needs to keep up and etc. Now, this is kind of like a part two because we're another 4 games in, 5 in all competitions where we got knocked out by Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, and let's address all of it because a lot of things have changed since then, and I need to give everyone context because after the Manchester City game, for example, I was very positive despite the fact that we lost 3-1. So no one can really call me just this negative guy for no reason, even though I don't think a loss against anyone is acceptable. I don't think a draw is acceptable either. I'm not one of these people that are like, oh, but because we lost to Fulham and Brentford last season, it's okay to draw with them now. And even if we didn't lose to them last season, they would still find a way to spin the narrative of it's good to draw with these teams. I complained about this last season. I'm going to complain about it this season because it was like last season under Moyes where we drew to Tottenham 1-1, and a lot of people were praising it. We drew to Tottenham at home. Like, that's not a good thing. You need to win against Tottenham, not draw. As simple as that. If you're approaching a derby, a big game, there you go. And funny enough, we actually have Tottenham in our first game of the season, the first game coming back from the international break. But going back onto what I was talking about with the Manchester City game, the reason why we were also positive as well is the specific approach to the game. Now, it's because, like, yes, you could say we were open, but we've conceded goals where we've sat back and tried to soak up pressure anyway. Maybe with this defense, it would have been better to soak up pressure because we have better defenders than last season. However, you don't get the best out of your attack, and I feel like everyone that sits back against Manchester City, unless you have like a defense of Arsenal's and or Van Dijk and Konate at Liverpool, then you can't really afford to sit back. And even then, Liverpool don't even sit back when they approach Manchester City in games. Like, you need to play to your philosophy. And what I don't get about this manager is that he actually kept his philosophy against Manchester City, but he does it against Fulham away and Brentford away, and games like that. Even Chelsea at home, it didn't feel like it was the same team. I just, yeah, I'm gonna get into everything in this video, but it was also the bravery that I've seen us lacking with most of the other games in the Premier League that we've played in so far, to pass through the middle, to pass through the lines and stuff as well with the players that we have. And to be honest with you, I was very impressed because it was the lineup that I was kind of happy with and kind of understood why. I would have liked Debo in that game, don't get me wrong. I would have liked Kudus to not play on the left, etc. But I understood why Kudus would play on the left in this situation as Rodriguez and Alvarez was the midfield. And both of them played well in that game. Both of them were very composed. And Alvarez was just coming back. I was very surprised that he came back that quick. But they played well that game. We were very composed. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was amazing. We just made individual errors. And it was like, okay, if you cut those errors out, you approach Fulham after the international break in the same way. You approach, like, we were looking at Brentford and Ipswich as those games as well. Chelsea at home as well. Go on a run. Go on a run. Try and go on a run and try and put your philosophy on these teams. This is where the negatives come in. This is where we failed to actually capitalize on that, because I know a lot of people are going to go to the recency bias stuff, the fact that we won 4-1 in one game, and there's a lot of positives to still take from that game, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't change my vision and my negatives for the team for the long term. And I'll try and take it game by game, but I'm trying not to make this video as long. Now, the problem is, the excuse was when we came back after the international break to face Fulham was that, like, Paquetá, for example, Paquetá came out for Souček, and then we played a midfielder, Alvarez, Suchek and Rodriguez, Suchek at the 10 next to Antonio, which severely hindered the team with the way the manager approached the game as well. And it was because Paquetá came off like against Brazil in the international duty. So expect the same against Tottenham then, because that didn't work against Fulham. It's not going to work against Tottenham. I don't care how Brighton beat them. Brighton beat them by passing through them. If you want to beat Tottenham, pass through them, press them. But I don't think we're going to approach the game the same as Brighton did. But with the way we played in that game, it's like we thought we would bin our whole philosophy out the window for Fulham away, which is embarrassing considering the way you played against Manchester City at home, which is why none of the strategy really makes any sense. It's like at times, yeah, when you watch us, we play short and then we play it long, and I get sick of that in general. But even in that game, we didn't even play short once from a goal kick. Areola was told to just hit it long because Souček and Antonio were right there. The problem is that we saw against Crystal Palace and Aston Villa as the two games as an example of where we've gone long, is that we win the first duel and no one's there for the second duel. Because clearly they're not been coached to do that, but for some reason for that specific game, they've been told to go long. So now you're confusing the players, and that's why the players look so lost when they are approaching the field. Because they don't know what style of play they're going to play. That's why you hear Antonio say we're shaking off the rust of last season. But that makes it sound like it's the players' habits to do all of this. But no, it's not, because we've got new players now that are doing this. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to get onto a specific situation tomorrow in tomorrow's video about a player that's severely upgraded the side and has allowed the team to be more calmer in possession. I'm going to have that video coming to you guys tomorrow. But with this situation, it's like Max Kilman has been told to go long, and he can hit a long ball very accurate. It's one of the most accurate long passes I've ever seen at this club in terms of from a centre back point of view. Because listen, Winston Reid and Tompkins and Collins did a good job of it under Allardyce. Craig Dawson did a good job of it sometimes, but a lot of it, even then at times, his ball playing ability was heavily overrated in my opinion. A lot of the passes were going off the pitch, and Kilman that happens, but it doesn't happen as much. And we've seen with Tadibo, he can hit a pass as well. Mavropanos is terrible at it, and again was always terrible at it. Zuma wasn't good at it as well. Like, I think it looked worse with him because he looked uncomfortable doing it as well. He looked like he was about to end his whole career by just kicking a ball, and that's the problem when you have rubber knees. But when it comes to the side in general, it was severely hindered in possession, specifically in that Fulham game, because we were just hitting it long. Now you think, okay, this manager's going to be ruthless and take Souček and Antonio off at half time, and he did do that. But the problem is, I've blamed a lot of the players. Like, I go at the manager and the players every time. I don't just specifically put my energy onto one section. However, I've kind of had to do that a little bit more this season as the games have gone on, because even when the Somerville and Bowen came on, and this was the front four that everyone wanted, well, apart from me, because I didn't want Bowen up front apart from the Chelsea game. Somerville on the left, Paquetá the 10, Bowen up front, and Kudus on the right. The problem is we didn't really look any better, and that was another. It's also because we kept the Alvarez Rodriguez midfield against Fulham. Which we didn't need to. We only needed it for the big games, the Man Cities, etc. We don't need to play that pivot all the time. However, that didn't help because you got Carlos Soler on the bench. I know that was the first game where he pretty much comes in, but come on, have a bit of common sense. Have a bit of common sense to know that these two players, Alvarez and Rodriguez, aren't necessarily the most creative. So when you're coming up against a side that isn't going to be as open as Manchester City, you're going to need someone different. So that's why you need Soler a bit deeper, Paquetá a bit deeper, to create. And that's why we've been begging for that for so long. And I'm going to try and not talk about the specifics that I want in each position, because I've been going on about it for weeks. But when it comes to this side as well, like when the best players were on, we still look bad. And if we're looking at the season in general and looking at, let's take everyone else out of it in terms of the fans. Let's look at me specifically. I've criticised Soufal throughout the whole season, Areola for a bit, Souček, Antonio, Emerson, Paquetá, Kudus, well, mainly for the position he's been playing in, Alvarez, Rodriguez, whoever, yeah. Mavropanos. And think about the players I've just listed, yeah. Now, I don't think a lot of those players are good enough for West Ham. Like, I think half of them are good enough, half of them are probably not anymore as regular starters. But if everyone is playing bad, especially all the best players, and if you're looking at it in general, let's take what I just said out of that and look at specifically Bowen, Paquetá, Kudus, Alvarez, Emerson, probably the best 5 players of last season, and they're all playing bad. You only look to one man because a lot of people have been disappointed with Emerson. I don't think he's been that bad. I just don't think he's getting the best out of him. Bowen's playing out of position, not out of position, but like out of his role. We've discussed that before. Paquetá and Kudus, he hasn't got the best out of them either. And Edson Alvarez is just coming back from an injury and he got a red card. And this is a style of foot. Like if he was meant to play possession-based style of football, that's a style of football that suits him a lot more. So you're looking at all of that, and there's only one man to blame, and that's the manager. Now I'm looking at new managers coming into teams. I'm thinking, how are they getting the best out of their players already? Because they're better coaches, and not just because they're better coaches. They're more suited to the modern game. They're more suited to the modern game. I don't know whether Lopetegui thinks that. I know that some foreign managers, yeah, what they do is when they come into the Premier League, they think they have to play like the Premier League way or whatever that means, which is like sending it long, playing a specific physical game, and that's it. The reason why the best coaches are the best coaches is because they are on what's it called? Go by their own principles, stay on their own principles, and are stubborn to that extent, but also have the ability to evolve. The Peps of this world. Jose maybe not so in his modern game, but he's won so much because he rested on his laurels. Ferguson, all these managers. The reason why they're the best managers in the world is because they stick to what they know and they don't care about what environment they're in. Now you could risk. Now that is also a risk, but the best coaches do that. The problem is with some of these managers, they think they need to adapt their whole style to the league, which is what I think is going to kill Lopetegui in the end. Is he's having to change so much every game that he's not going to be able to have anyone settled. Now, this is why I said in my match reaction for the Ipswich game. Now, even though I don't want this lineup on a regular basis, keep this lineup on a regular basis so you can get players used to your style of play. Because let's jump forward to the Ipswich game just for a little bit. Well, there's nothing really to say about the Brentford game, but with the Ipswich game, we played the style of football that we saw against Manchester City, apart from the first 20 minutes where we kept knocking it long. But we've been begging to see that for 5 games now. For 5 games to approach games the same way. So all the players get used to it. You get the best out of the players that you have. And then we can really kill off opponents because the games against Man City and Ipswich have been our best performances by far because we've given teams a go. But also because we've come up against open teams. Well, Man City's quite open. We just didn't finish our chances and made individual errors for them. And listen, Man City are a class above anyway. And it's like they've gotten better. We'll see what that's like in the future if De Bruyne is still out with Rodri out because that can hinder them and that does stifle their creativity. But that's a conversation for another day. But with the Ipswich game, it's the same because they were open, but they're not as good as Man City in possession, out of possession. So we were able to pass through them when being more brave. It's like there's a thing in the back of our heads where we don't want to be as brave because we're so scared of making mistakes. We play like we're scared to give away the ball a lot. That's the way I see it. Now, if Lopetegui wants to keep his job and wants West Ham to actually be a team that are going to finish in Europe year in, year out, and he thinks he's the manager to do that, he's got to approach the game exactly the way he did against Man City and against Ipswich. Not the way he did at Chelsea at home, Fulham away, Brentford away, Aston Villa at home, and Crystal Palace away. He can't approach it the way he did in those games at all in any game. I don't care who the opponent is because we've seen that you can tweak your starting 11. Like I understand that Alvarez Rodriguez midfield in a Big Six game against Aston Villa, etc. Teams like that. But I don't understand it against Fulham and Brentford, with all due respect, because Fulham they're way better than us right now, and Brentford are way better than us right now. Even though we drew to them on the day, they are better teams than us because they are better coached and they're more settled. You don't approach if you feel like those are winnable games, you don't play those type of midfields. It's like the manager as well, despite the fact that he has lost an away game yet. He feels like he has to restrict himself too much when going to the away game. It's like he overthinks every away game. Like the problem is, I've spoken about this issue a million times. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I'm gonna keep repeating myself if I'm gonna keep seeing the same issue all the time. But let's specifically talk about off the ball for a sec, because this is the last point I'll come on to. Now, against Fulham on the ball, there was a lack of press, and the problem is Lopetegui. We watched this in the James Lawrence Alcott video. He pretty much got it spot on, where we don't, and we saw this in the first preseason game as well. We don't press from the front all the time. We wait until they pass into the midfield to trigger the press. This is a big problem because teams will just see that and walk through the team like Pau Torres did against us, or hit it long like Palace did in the preseason game, or where the way other teams have done it with Fulham and stuff, where they just put a ball in behind. Um, and because you're not putting any pressure on the team, but you're keeping the line high, they're going to find space very easily, the gaps between the centre backs and the fullbacks specifically. And even then, when we're too narrow, all teams do is switch the ball against us. Fulham were doing it about 20 times. Like, that was probably Wan-Bissaka's worst game for us because they were targeting the switch. And it wasn't necessarily targeting Wan-Bissaka. It was just targeting the wide areas in general. And their left side is way better than their right side, Fulham, because of Anthony Robinson and his overlaps, like on the left-hand side and stuff. And the problem is against Fulham, there was a lack of press, so they were just passing through. And Fulham likes to switch up. They can pass through, they can go diagonal, etc. Especially with Joaquin Anderson's ball playing ability and his diagonal passing. The same happened in pretty much in the Brentford game, but a bit different, like because they like to switch it up as well. They go direct at times, so sometimes they play it from the back. But the difference is with doing all of that and being different, they do it well. We don't go along and do it well because we don't have an Andy Carroll up front. Like even Brentford, even if their players like 5'8", they can still jump higher than anyone else. Like that's why Mbeumo, they still go along to Mbeumo sometimes because he could jump. Like it's not just for the fact that they had Ivan Toney there. With that game specifically as well, is that we sat back our midfield with our defense high up. I was just seeing Alvarez. Was it Alvarez? No, Rodriguez. Sorry, Souček, Bowen, and Kudus playing on the left, kind of just shifting left and right, not really doing anything. When Bowen and Antonio tried to press and direct someone else to press, nobody was following them. Nobody was following them. And there's too many holes in our press. There's too many holes. It's just way too many gaps to play through. Speaking of gaps, the way we approached the Chelsea game, I've repeated it a million times, we went man to man. And that was a big problem. And that's why we conceded so early. So the manager tries to change it up all the time when it comes to playing off the ball. Now, the difference is with the Ipswich game, I spoke about this issue on the match reaction. I don't know if I've spoken about it anymore because when I tried to record this video, I pretty much emphasized on this issue. The Leif Davis issue. And what I mean by that is the way we've tried to mini press from the front, even though we only press from the front after the first 20 minutes, which is how we should just press from the front. Stop waiting until the ball gets into midfield. I don't think the manager's going to change that because that's his philosophy, that's his way. But I think that's going to kill him. And I think that's going to kill us. Especially coming up to that Tottenham game, who like to play out from the back and are good at playing out from the back. It's actually more off the ball that's their problem and more individual errors. But coming up against Ipswich, they like to play out from the back, but we don't trigger the press. So they then pass in midfield. Bowen and Kudus are specifically told to stand on the edge of the box. So Ben Johnson and Leif Davis are the spare men by just going behind them. So then Muric is just picking up the pass. We don't put any pressure on him so that he can just calmly pick up the pass towards their fullbacks. And it was happening a lot down their left-hand side with the Leif Davis, Jack Clark left-hand side. And then they got on a couple of attacks. They didn't do anything from it, but Lopetegui changed that. He put Bowen on Leif Davis when we were trying to press. And then we press from the front, which is what we should be doing. The problem is, every time I watch us press anyway, everyone has an extra man in midfield. Everyone has an extra man in midfield. They drag out one of our defenders, and then they go on attacks. So I think they need to work on that. That it's alarming for me. But those are the things that we've learned from Lopetegui so far. I've told you everything on the ball and off the ball that we need to work on. Player lineups, I give up with him when it comes to player lineups. It doesn't. That's the thing with the Ipswich game. It doesn't change anything for me because that's what we should be doing with the squad that we have. We should be doing this. We should be with one game a week with this squad. There is no excuses, and this is coming from someone who predicted us to finish 10th. I said 10th on the style of play. Give me 10th in style of play, then I demand Europe after that. If you don't get Europe, then you can go. But guess what? I'm seeing less than what I expected. I always expect low things. I don't expect anything at this club. I demand a lot. I don't expect anything because of the amount of times this club has let me down. But these are my concerns. This is why I'm still not really that confident. But I was very happy with the win. I was just happy to get 3 points on the board because that was needed for the morale of the group. Does it delay the inevitable of probably this manager failing? Yeah, probably. If I'm being 100% honest with you, yes. I'm not going to flip flop about it. I wanted to get behind. I was going to get behind any manager that was going to come in, especially if it was rumored to be approved by Stardom. I was going to get behind that, but we will see. We've got a tough 4 games. I think Everton's up there and Newcastle. I know we've got Tottenham and Man United as well. I'd like to think we beat Man United, but you never know with this club. I know we won at Tottenham away last year, but it doesn't mean we beat them this year. And I feel like because it's the manager's first, well, not even the first big derby, because Chelsea was a big derby for me. I mean, they don't fucking take that serious properly, like the old days. That is coming from a 21-year-old. But with the Tottenham game, it's the first big derby, I guess, even though you failed in the Chelsea one. So I feel like the manager's going to be extra cautious. But anyway, that's the end of that. I'm not going to make this a 40-minute video because I don't need to do that. There's also just going to be repeating myself if I do. But make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Social medias are in the description if you want to follow me, and the email for the inquiries. We're on the road to 1K subscribers. We're nearly on 600. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.